8 years ago, I reserved 4 front row seats at my college graduation for my parents, my aunt, and my cousin. All 4 seats remained empty. They went to my cousin's engagement barbecue instead. Last spring, at a black tie award ceremony in Chicago, those same 4 people appeared at the check-in desk, uninvited, announcing themselves as the family of the honoree. I was the honoree. This is the story of 2 ceremonies, 8 years apart, and everything that happened between them. My name is Natalie. I am 30 years old, and I grew up in a small Illinois town in a family with a very clear weather system. The sun was my cousin Ashley. Ashley is the daughter of my father's older sister, Aunt Linda. She is 11 months older than me, and from birth, she was the family event. Ashley's dance recitals were mandatory attendance. Her cheer competitions emptied our side of the church pews. When Ashley received a car for her 16th birthday, my mother helped organize the party. I am not saying Ashley was cruel. She was not. She was simply the sun, and the rest of us were expected to orbit. My orbit was quieter. Libraries, part-time jobs, scholarship applications at the kitchen table while everyone watched recordings of Ashley's competitions in the living room. No one in my immediate family had ever completed college. When I was accepted into the State University's environmental engineering program, my mother said, "That is nice, honey, but who is going to pay for all of that?" I was. I worked 3 jobs across 4 years, cafeteria mornings, tutoring in the afternoons, and weekend shifts at a pharmacy. I graduated with honors. I do not say that to brag. I say it so you understand the size of what my family chose to miss. Because there was one person who never missed anything important to me. My Grandma June. June was my father's mother, a tiny woman with a tremendous laugh who had grown up on a farm without running water. She attended my spelling bees. She attended my science fairs. While I was at college, she mailed me $20 bills inside greeting cards with messages like, "Eat a vegetable. Love, June." Remember June. She's the reason the second ceremony happened at all. Graduation was held on the third Saturday in May, and that year it was not simply another graduation ceremony for me. I had been selected as the student speaker out of nearly 4,000 graduates. I was a first-generation college student who had worked 3 jobs, graduated with honors, and had been chosen to deliver the commencement address. Each graduate received 2 guest tickets. I needed more, so I spent 2 weeks trading tickets with classmates. I even tutored one student through her calculus final until I had secured 5. 4 tickets were for my mother, my father, Aunt Linda, and Ashley, if she wanted to come. I mailed their tickets home inside a card. My note said, "Front section, row 6. I will be the one wearing the cap." I added a little heart because I was 22, and I still believed that sending tickets meant the seats would be filled. The 5th ticket went into a separate envelope addressed to Grandma June. She called me the day it arrived. "Row 6, seat 5, she said. "I will be the one wearing the church dress." 2 weeks before the ceremony, Ashley became engaged. I was genuinely happy for her, but her engagement barbecue was scheduled on the 3rd Saturday in May, 1 state away. It was the same day as my graduation, the same hour. My mother called me on a Tuesday. I can still hear the exact melody of her voice. "Sweetheart, do not be dramatic about this. Graduations are long and boring. You will have others, master's degrees and such. Ashley only gets engaged once." I said, "Mom, I am giving the speech. I am the student speaker." "And we are so proud of you," she answered. "Linda is renting a bounce house. You will send us the video." They all went to the barbecue. All 4 seats I had saved for them remained empty in the front section, directly within my line of sight from the podium. 4 empty folding chairs in row 6. But row 6 was not completely empty. Seat 5 held Grandma June. She was 81 years old. She had traveled by bus and taxi for 4 hours each way, wearing her church dress and holding a handbag on her knees as though it contained state secrets. When I reached the podium and saw those 4 empty chairs, my throat closed. Then I saw June. She raised one tiny fist like a boxer. I delivered the entire speech to her. Afterwards, she pressed something into my hand. It was a small silver brooch shaped like a stalk of wheat. "Your grandfather gave me this on the morning I did the hardest thing in my life," she said. "It goes to the women in this family who show up. As of today, that is you." Then she opened her handbag. Inside was my graduation program. She had already asked an usher for 2 extra copies. One is for the frame, and one is for backup. That evening, I took graduation photographs with my roommate Priya's family. They insisted. They had watched me eat their leftovers during holidays and exam weeks for 4 years, and they refused to spend graduation evening alone. While we stood in their backyard, my phone filled with photographs from the barbecue. There were 40 posts. The bounce house, the banner, Ashley crying happy tears over her engagement ring. Then I saw a photograph of my entire family squinting into the sun and smiling. Beneath it, my mother had written 3 words: "Family is everything." I stood in my cap and gown in someone else's backyard and read those words, posted by a woman who was 1 state away from her only daughter's graduation speech. I did not comment. I did not call. Something inside me quietly closed a door. The way you close a door during winter. I did not slam it. I simply shut it against the cold. After graduation, I accepted a job in Chicago designing water systems. This is where Grandma June enters the story again, because June was secretly the engineer behind everything. She had grown up hauling water from a hand pump, 2 buckets, half a mile, twice a day, beginning when she was 6 years old. She never described it as a tragedy. She described it as arithmetic. 4 trips on wash days, Natalie. You learn what water costs when you are the one carrying it. Those stories stayed with me. While working in Chicago, I began sketching something during my evenings. It was a low-cost filtration unit made from simple components. It required no electricity and was designed for the small rural water systems that larger engineering firms often overlooked, the kinds of communities June had known. It took 5 years. There were failed prototypes in my apartment, weekends spent inside workshops, and grant applications written at 2 in the morning. June would have approved of the 2 in the morning part. During the 6th year, the system worked. A county in Kentucky installed 40 units, then more than 100 additional units were installed across 3 states. Clean water measurements improved. Rates of waterborne illness declined. Engineering journals began writing about the system. I called June every Sunday through all of it. She always asked the same question. "How is our water coming, honey?" Our water. She died 2 years before the award ceremony. She passed quietly in her sleep at 87, with my framed graduation program still hanging on her hallway wall. At the funeral, while my father and Aunt Linda argued in the kitchen about June's house before the flowers had even wilted, I took nothing except what was already mine. The wheat brooch remained on my collar. When the estate was settled, I received 1 frame from the hallway wall. After that, I stopped returning home. There was no longer any home in it, only a house where the sun had once received all the light. Last January, I received a telephone call from a foundation in Chicago. I had been selected to receive the Meridian Prize, a national award recognizing engineering for the public good. There would be a black tie ceremony with 500 guests, television cameras, and a grant of $250,000 for the winning project. I had won. I sat in my office and cried. The first complete sentence that entered my mind was June's. "How is our water coming, honey?" The local news station in my hometown reported the story. Hometown woman wins National Engineering Prize. My former high school shared it online. Then, like swallows returning for spring, my family rediscovered me. My mother shared the article with the caption, "So proud of our Natalie. She gets her brains from our side." Aunt Linda commented with 3 heart emojis. Ashley, who was now divorced from the barbecue fiancé and engaged to someone new, wrote, "That is literally my cousin. We are so close." We had not spoken in 2 years. Then my mother called. Her voice was warm as a griddle, as though no time had passed. "Sweetheart, we saw the news. We are all thrilled. Your father needs to know the date. Linda is asking about the dress code, and Ashley wants to know whether she can bring a +1. How many tickets do we get?" Tickets. I want you to sit with that word for a moment. Tickets. It came from the woman who had once held 4 of mine while a bounce house was being rented. I remained calm. Calmness is something I learned at a podium while staring at 4 empty chairs. I said, "Mom, the foundation controls the seating, and my team is already full. My team, my mentor, Priya, and the people who helped build the project will be sitting with me." There was a pause. Then her voice cooled by 10 degrees. "I see. Your own family. Well, I hope your table enjoys it." I said, "They showed up for the rehearsals too, Mom. They always do." She ended the call first. I genuinely believed that was the end of it. I expected nothing worse than a passive-aggressive social media post. I underestimated the attraction of a television camera. On the night of the ceremony, I stood backstage wearing a navy gown with June's silver wheat brooch pinned to my shoulder. An event coordinator gently touched my elbow. "Miss, I am sorry to interrupt. We have a situation at check-in. 4 people are insisting that they are the immediate family of the honoree. Their names are not on any list. What would you like us to do?" They had come anyway. My mother, my father, Aunt Linda, and Ashley, wearing a dress my assistant Dana later described as bridal adjacent. They had driven 3 hours without invitations to attend a ticketed gala. They planned to become my family again in front of the cameras. I stood backstage holding my speech cards and considered my options. Option 1 was simple. Security could escort them outside. It would have been clean, possibly deserved. But 8 years earlier, 4 empty chairs had told an auditorium full of strangers exactly who my family was. I did not need to have anyone removed. I had never needed to. My family had always been capable of revealing themselves. I told the coordinator, "Do not ask them to leave. Seat them at any available table in the back, wherever there are unused places from no-shows." Then I added, "They are guests tonight. They are not members of the honoree's party. My table is already full." And it was. My table was positioned at the front and center of the ballroom. Priya was there. Professor Okafor, who had written my first recommendation letter, was there. Carmen from the Kentucky Water District was there. My entire engineering team was there. Everyone who had ever occupied a chair for me. The ceremony began. When my name was announced, I walked toward the same kind of podium I had approached 8 years earlier. I looked across the front section. Every chair was filled. There were rows of people who had shown up. Somewhere in the farthest corner sat 4 late arrivals at a table no one else had claimed. I delivered the speech I had prepared for the entire room, but one part of it belonged to that back corner, even though I never looked toward it. I said, "People often ask what inspired the filtration project. The answer is a woman named June. Beginning at the age of 6, she carried water for half a mile, twice every day. She taught me that you learn what something costs when you are the person who must carry it. Then I paused. June also taught me something about ceremonies. 8 years ago, I delivered my graduation address while looking at 4 empty chairs. The peoples whose seats I had worked so hard to secure decided they had somewhere better to be. But one 81-year-old woman traveled for 4 hours each way by bus and taxi. She sat alone in row 6 and raised her fist toward me like a boxer. The ballroom became completely silent. I continued. Here is what I learned between those 2 ceremonies. Family is not a bloodline. Family is an attendance record. Tonight, my table is full. Then I made the announcement. The $250,000 grant would fund the next phase of rural installations under a new name, the June Project. All 500 guests rose to their feet. The back corner stood last. I was later told that my mother's hands did not quite meet when she clapped. After the ceremony, the lobby was filled with marble, champagne, and camera flashes. I was shaking hands with a congresswoman when my family approached. My mother arrived the way weather arrives. She spoke in a bright voice with a wire hidden inside it. Well, that was quite a speech. Empty chairs, very dramatic. You did not mention that we drove 3 hours to be here tonight. Then she lowered her voice. You humiliated us, Natalie, in front of all these people. And I finally felt something I had waited 8 years to feel. Nothing. My heart did not race. My throat did not close. There was simply a level floor beneath me. I said, Mom, I never mentioned your names. I told the truth about some empty chairs. If 500 strangers heard that story and thought of you, my speech is not what humiliated you. Aunt Linda tried next. Sweetheart, family forgives. June would want this family to remain whole. I touched the wheat brooch on my shoulder. Aunt Linda, you argued about June's house at her funeral before the coffee was cold. Please do not tell me what June would have wanted. Then I said, June put what she believed into words. This brooch goes to the women who show up. Ashley, to her credit, said nothing. She looked around the marble lobby the way someone looks at a country she has only just discovered exists. My father had remained silent through 8 years of moments exactly like this one. Finally, he said, We will drive home tonight then. He guided the others toward the doors. The following morning, the story was everywhere. The June Project, the speech. The sentence, family is an attendance record, traveled farther than I expected. Within a month, strangers were printing it on coffee mugs, which June would have found hilarious. The local paper in my hometown reprinted the story, and the town performed its own quiet arithmetic. People remembered the barbecue. Some people had attended my graduation. Comment sections can be cruel places. I will not pretend that I read them. Priya read them for me. Priya also reported that Ashley deleted her post saying, "That is literally my cousin," before lunchtime. My mother posted nothing for 19 days. Then, on a Tuesday, my phone displayed a name it had not shown in a very long time. It was not a social media post. It was not a family group message. It was a call from my father. He had not personally dialed my number since I was in college. When I answered, his voice sounded like gravel. He said 6 words. Your mother is in the lobby. She had called him from downstairs because she was afraid I would refuse to answer her directly. She was alone. There was no Aunt Linda, no Ashley, no audience. My mother sat in the lobby of my building with her purse resting on her knees. June used to hold her handbag the same way. The resemblance did something complicated to my chest. We walked to a coffee shop on the corner. For a long time, my mother stirred her coffee without drinking it. Finally, she said, I watched the clip 11 times. Then, because there was nowhere left for her to stand, she stopped performing. I told myself for 8 years that you did not mind, she said. I told myself that you were the strong one, the independent one. Ashley needed attention, and you did not." She looked down. It was easier for me to believe that. "Your grandmother tried to tell me once. She said, 'Deborah, that girl counts chairs.' I laughed at her." My mother looked up. For one complicated second, the regret in her face reminded me of June. "You counted the chairs," she said, "and ours were empty." "I am not asking you to pretend they were not. I'm asking what happens now." I did not embrace her while music played and the credits rolled. That happens in movies. This was a family. I said, "What happens now will be slow, Mom. It will happen in person. It will happen without Aunt Linda narrating it. And it begins with you understanding that I am no longer angry, but that is not the same thing as saying nothing happened." She nodded. Then she finally drank her coffee. "It has now been 1 year. It is, in fact, slow. My mother has visited 4 times. She asks about the filtration project now. Last month, without being prompted, she called it our water." I had to turn toward the window for a moment. Ashley sent me one message. "Proud of you, cousin." I answered kindly and briefly. We are what we are, which is cordial. The sun and I now occupied different orbits, and both of us seem comfortable with that arrangement. The June project passed 400 installations this spring. There is a school in Kentucky where the drinking fountains now run clean. Above the school office door hangs a photograph of a tiny woman wearing a church dress and raising one fist like a boxer. The frame the graduation program now hangs in my office. Some visitors think it is unusual to frame your own graduation program. It is not unusual. It is a record of attendance. My name is printed on the program hanging on the wall. June's memory rests inside the wheat brooch on my collar. The 2 people who truly showed up that day are still together. So here is what I know about ceremonies. Someone is always watching from row 6. Build your life for that person. Keep the tickets you are given. Count who uses them. Not because you want to punish anyone. Count them so that when your name is finally called, you know exactly which chairs deserve to be filled. Family is an attendance record. Show up, and you are in mine. If this story held you until the end, subscribe to Vermilion Veil. There is a new story every day. And behind every veil, the truth is waiting to burn.